Welcome to the weekly sports show, and this is the MMA segment of the first episode. So, this week we're going to talk about UFC 249. UFC 249 took place on May 9th, if I'm not wrong, and it was pretty interesting because I didn't expect it to go that way. So, we'll start Francis Ngannou, with Francis Ngannou's fight, and then Cejudo, and then Gaethje's fight. So, before we get onto that, another quick fight I wanted to talk about was Anthony Pettis versus Donald Cerrone right here in the undercard. So in this fight, the thing is, I didn't mind this fight happening. It would have been a good fight. I didn't watch it, so I'm not so sure. But Donald Cerrone, you've got to give it to him. Even though he lost his last three fights, he still wants to fight, and it's kind of like for him it's more than a job. It's not even a job anymore, or it was never a job for him. It was a hobby. It was a thing he loved to do, not a hobby, a thing he loved to do. And many people said that he should retire, but I don't think so. Let him let him do whatever he wants. If he still wants to fight till whenever he wants to, then that's his choice. So I'm not gonna put anything against him. I would still watch Cerrone fight because he's still an interesting fighter. So yeah, that's that. So Francis Ngannou beats this guy's name who I can't pronounce, to be honest, but he beats him in 40 seconds. 40 seconds, and the thing is, I was really surprised because I after he lost to Stipe Miocic, I thought that that'd be just a downfall, but he's really picked it up and he's really doing well. But what I wanted to talk about was not about the fight. It was more about his little feud he has with John Jones right. So after UFC, I think UFC Fight Night last night, um, John Jones put out saying that he wouldn't mind going to heavyweight, and he was just flirting around that whole topic. But one thing I would want to watch is John Jones versus Israel Adesanya, but that's we can talk about that at a later time. So Ngannou said that he wants to fight John Jones, and John Jones told that he's too slow, blah blah blah, trash talk, the usual thing. But would I like to see this fight? Would people love to see this fight? I think so. Because John Jones hasn't had an interesting fight in a long time. It's like even though he had a lot of fights in 2019, in my opinion, they weren't that great. They were all right. But Ngannou seems like a fight which would be really interesting, and which would put John Jones' value up there a bit more. So yeah, I would like to see that fight, but I would still back John Jones over Ngannou, even though Ngannou has that one punch knockout power because of John Jones's experience and what he's done. I don't think Ngannou would be able to beat him, but it would still be a fight I would consider watching. But yeah, that's an okay matchup. Not that interesting in my opinion. But up next, we've got Henry Cejudo versus Dominic Cruz. To be honest, I thought I had a feeling that Dominic Cruz would win, and apparently, what happened during the fight was that the referee stopped the fight when they were standing up. What I mean is, they were exchanging. Actually, they weren't exchanging. Cruz wasn't returning, but Cruz was annoyed about the fact that the ref stopped the fight because Dominic was still getting up. But Cejudo, you still got to respect the guy, even though he's cringy. In my opinion, he's still a great fighter. He beat Mighty Mouse. He beat TJ Dillashaw. He got two belts, and now he's beating a legend in Dominic Cruz. So he's had a brilliant career. But one thing I did not see coming was Henry Cejudo's retirement. I didn't expect him to retire so soon. I think he's only 33 years old or something. I'm not so sure, but I wasn't expecting Cejudo um to retire this soon. But if he wants to, then sure, go ahead. But if you look at the featherweight division and the bantamweight division, I don't see any interesting fights with him. I mean, featherweight he won't go. Sorry, flyweight or bantamweight. I don't see anyone who's interesting around there, especially in flyweight. In my opinion, it's the most boring division out of them all. Um, in the bantamweight, we've got Marlon Moraes. That's it. Cody Garbrandt has lost his form. DJ Dillashaw still has the band. There's no one interesting. So I guess it makes sense for Cejudo because even if he loses against, let's say, one of these guys who we've never even heard of, then that kind of puts a stain on his career. So, even he said that he was happy with how he's ended his career. So, fair play to him. Um, that was his decision. I've nothing against it. He's a brilliant fighter. So, like when he beat Mighty Mouse, I was really surprised because I thought that Mighty Mouse would be the best bantamweight of all time, and he beat him. So Cejudo, he's had an interesting career, and there's no one else I would want him to fight. He's done everything he should, so fair play to him. But now we'll move on to the main event, which was crazy. I saw a couple of highlights. It was crazy. Justin Gaethje took a big uppercut. He ate that, but he still fought through, and he beat Tony Ferguson. It was kind of like a mauling, like a physical beatdown for Tony Ferguson. And generally, in my opinion, I thought that Tony Ferguson was going to win the fight because I felt like he was just more all-rounded compared to Justin Gaethje. But then I kind of ignore the fact that he's on two weight cuts, which is training, and he was preparing for Khabib, who's a grappler. I'm sure that he didn't sharpen his striking game that much. And one thing with Gaethje is his boxing standards is above most of the people, or if not everyone, in the lightweight division. Apart from Conor McGregor, though, I feel like Conor's stand up is a bit better than Justin Gaethje's. So that was an interesting thing, though. Tony losing against Gaethje, and to be honest, it was heartbreak too because Tony versus Khabib was scheduled 5 times, and it just didn't happen. Each time there was something or the other which we couldn't ignore, and now we wouldn't get to see Tony versus Khabib, and to be honest, I'm quite annoyed. I really wanted to watch that fight. I was really looking forward to it, but you know, Gaethje was the better man that night, much better according to Joe Rogan. He put on a masterpiece, and if Joe Rogan's telling Gaethje the fight about that, sorry, that means Justin has done bits. He's really put it up, and fair play to him because he's been knocking out guys left, right, and center. He I guess he deserves it too. And Justin Gaethje versus Khabib would be an interesting fight, a really interesting fight because we all know that Khabib's just grappling. His stand up is all right. It's not that bad, but it's not great at all, in my opinion. But obviously, his wrestling just neutralizes everything else. But Justin Gaethje has had a wrestling background, if many don't know. Although he's always on the offensive stand-up game each and every single fight, he does have a really good wrestling background, according to Joe Rogan and Daniel Cormier, and those are two very reliable sources. So, what I want to say, Justin Gaethje, Khabib, obviously, hands down, 100%. That would be amazing. And how I think that fight would go, I generally don't know. Although Khabib is a monster, he's just really good. I feel like Justin Gaethje has a really good shot at him. I'm not saying that Justin Gaethje will beat him, but I'm not saying that Justin Gaethje will lose either. I generally don't know. It could go either way. If Justin Gaethje tries to keep him off the grappling and just make it stand up, then 100% Justin Gaethje is going to win. Or not 100%, I would say 90 because you saw Khabib's knockdown against Conor McGregor. So that would be an interesting fight. That would really be an interesting fight. But what makes all of this more interesting is Conor McGregor's reaction to this. So I was really surprised by the way he reacted because many people were thinking that he wouldn't fight because of the COVID-19 and the whole problem with no fans. But he said that he would want to come, and he told Justin in his tweet. He said that he wants to fight Justin Gaethje, and quote, I will quote him right now from his tweet: "The fans make the sport. Watching the other night, I was against going in without them, but it will be my deep pleasure to display the power I possess with zero background noise for them. It's me and Justin next, as Khabib is the biggest bottle fighter in the game, guaranteed. He said this because Khabib was stranded in Russia when uh, they changed locations, and you can't blame Khabib, but um, many people think that he's a bottle job or he pulls out of fights, but I generally don't think so. I think that there's always a genuine reason for that to happen. But now is when he takes a proper shot at each and every single good contender in the lightweight division. So first he talks about Tony Ferguson. I love Tony. We represented him amazingly at the Paradigm Sports, and were betrayed for a promise of a baseball contract. But frame and preparation here was just embarrassing. His methods and conversation are humorous and enjoyable, but he was never in the level perceived, although tough. So over here, what he means is that although Ferguson is one of those people who didn't get the championship belt, even though they were really good. Chael Sonnen reminds me of Tony, and I really wanted to see the Khabib fight, but it's not going to happen. And Tony is a tough guy. He took a lot of shots, but he still stood up, and big respect to that guy. And I think there's some truth to it, to this tweet too, when he said his preparation wasn't that good, and I feel like it wasn't because he did those two weight cuts. It showed that he was that badass after all, but I felt like it was highly necessary, and I felt like that would have had a part in it. Now he takes a shot at Dustin Poirier, which which I would say would be cold blooded, and it was pretty good though, because I feel like Dustin will not get the championship belt at all. He's another fighter who's good, but he's not championship material. So this is Connor's tweet. It is Dustin or Tony when Tony heals. Dustin and Tony when Tony heals. If he does, Dustin will beat him. Also, if changes are not made, which they won't, Dustin, although game and in the mix, will be fed to the floor again. Couple of wins here and there, folded in half, rinse and repeat Dustin's career. So what he says is he feels like Tony will lose because he's kind of a one-dimensional fighter, and Dustin will win, lose some, and by rinse and repeat, he means that this cycle just continues to go on and he'll never win a belt, which I do agree with. And now on to Khabib, goes off on him. He says, Khabib, you absolute embarrassment. Scurrying, hiding, right as usual. As I have said many times, as has been seen many times, through the pain of class, it was confirmed what was always known. No comment, lol. That was Khabib's tweet after the Justin Gaethje versus Tony fight. An embarrassment to real fighting. You know what? What impresses me more is is that Khabib smashed Conor, and yet Conor talks like he owns the UFC and he's beat each and every single person, which which is really funny though, because to still have the audacity and to still have the confidence to speak to a guy who smashed you for 4 rounds, it's pretty impressive. And I would love to see Conor McGregor versus Khabib a rematch because I feel like Conor would beat him. I feel like the first time he did not take it seriously at all, and he really underestimated Khabib. But I feel like now he's got his his act together, and I feel like he would beat Khabib in the rematch. And lastly, he basically calls out Justin Gaethje, and I would love to see Conor versus Justin Gaethje. That would be a spectacle. Imagine just two people who want to knock each other's head off. This will be like a Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor thing again. It's really going to be amazing if that does happen. And I think it will happen. And what Conor McGregor says is, Justin, there is no danger in a man that hugs legs, referring to Khabib. We all know. Try and dance around what the real threat is here all you want. I'm going to butcher you, your teeth, I'm going to put them on a necklace. Speak on my skills as a father, you are dead. So Connor said that after all this, after he called out Justin Gaethje, he wants to clean out the lightweight division and then move on to the 170-pound division. So I would say fair play, but there are a lot of lightweight fights that he would want. Khabib is what will happen. I definitely feel like, and Justin Gaethje. Those two fights I really want to see, and maybe Tony Ferguson too. Those are three brilliant fights, which Conor would make so interesting, especially Tony and Justin Gaethje. Those would just be a bloodbath. I'm telling you, those would be really interesting, and I generally can't wait to watch any of them. And he even said that he wants to return in July, I guess. Um, that's good too because during the summer it's always the biggest fights ever. And Conor versus Justin Gaethje or Conor versus no, but sorry, Dana White said that it's going to be Justin versus Khabib. Obviously, that has to happen because Justin Gaethje has his interim belt. But I would really love to see Conor McGregor versus Justin Gaethje. So those are a lot of good fights at lightweight division, and I'm saying that that's the most interesting division out of them all right now. So many good contenders, so many good fights we can watch, and I generally cannot wait for how the UFC is going to take their actions from now on. It's really going to be interesting, and uh, let's see what happens. Yeah, so there's interesting fights I would like to watch. I would love to watch. Lightweight is stacked. I hope that they happen. And the way UFC carried UFC 249 was really brilliant. I feel like many of the other sports should see how Dana White took care of even Jacare Souza, who was tested positive for COVID-19. And the UFC has got a bright future when it comes to lightweight. I can see really good fights there. Welterweight seems decent. Masvidal versus Kamaru Usman would be brilliant. Middleweight, obviously, Paulo Costa versus Israel Adesanya, a fight everyone's looking forward to. John Jones, I'm waiting him to fight Dominic Reyes again because I thought that Dominic Reyes won the first fight. And rather, I'd like to see John Jones move up and fight Stipe or Daniel Cormier once again. But interesting fights. And my overall roundup about UFC 249. I didn't expect the results to go this way, but fair play to Justin Gaethje. I can't wait to watch the rest of the fights, which are Justin Gaethje, Khabib, Conor, Justin Gaethje, Conor, Khabib. So many interesting fights we've got to look forward to, and that's that's something I just can't wait for. I genuinely can't wait for that. So that's it from me. Uh, that's my take on UFC 249. My take on how I feel like UFC is going to go about with the lightweight division. Really interesting. Really, really interesting. And now I'll hand it off to Jason, all the way from San Diego, California. And he'll be giving his opinion on what he thinks and how he thinks UFC 249 played out. Over to you, Jason.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Fahd. I am here to present to you a roundup of UFC 249. I was really excited to see Khabib in the battlefield for one more time, but sadly that didn't happen. But that did not stop UFC 249 to be filled with action. It brought two title fights to Jacksonville, Florida on Saturday night. And luckily, we got to see Henry Cejudo take on two-time former champion Dominic Cruz. It was a battle between probably the two best bantamweights in UFC history. I was rooting for Cejudo all the way, and he did not disappoint. But sadly, his win will be tainted, at least in my eyes. There was a very controversial moment in the second round when the referee stoppage cut Cejudo Cruz short. To be honest though, Cejudo did hit Cruz with a brutal knee and 10 more shots, but Cruz was technically standing. Do you think he should have been awarded the TKO? At least I didn't think so. But it was the referee's decision, and that was the final say. You could clearly see the excitement in Cejudo's eyes as the decision was put out. And he in fact announced his retirement that night. But all I could see in his jubilant smile was Cruz in the background trying to fight his case against Dana White. I was really disappointed with the fight being cut short, as I wanted to see if Cruz could fight back. But it seemed that that was not the time to see a full-on battle between Dominic Cruz and Henry Cejudo. But here comes UFC 249's biggest event. Justin Gaethje took on Tony Ferguson, and he managed to beat him by TKO. I'ma be honest, Justin Gaethje put on a masterclass. He was simply brilliant against Tony Ferguson. It was a predictably close and gripping fight, but only through 2 rounds. And then it just became a superb performance that saw Tony Ferguson getting beaten everywhere around the cage. The stoppage in round 5 was absolutely the right call by Herb Dean, unlike the Henry Cejudo fight, as Ferguson took inhuman punishment until Herb saved him from himself. It went from thrilling to watch to actually a bit uncomfortable. Ferguson's 12-fight streak is gone. His title shot is gone. And the Khabib Nurmagomedov fight that he wanted, also gone. It is now Justin Gaethje's opportunity. But at least according to me, I don't see him beating Khabib anytime soon. He might be the UFC's interim lightweight champion, and I cannot believe to express how impressed I am. Gaethje acknowledged that his style got him to hit way too much, so he adjusted with a slew of first-round knockouts. Over the course of the 5-round battle against someone as dangerous as Tony, he did not only look very responsible defensively, his varied offensive arsenal flustered Ferguson throughout. Left kicks, left hooks, straight rights, overhand rights, body shots, jabs. The combination work was a thing of beauty. I mean, it was just beautiful to watch. Even when he hurt Ferguson, he did not get too wild. He knew that Tony always has something up his sleeve. And the only time he did actually get caught was that massive uppercut at the end of round 2. But then he just walked away like a boss. I mean, this is a really exciting opportunity for Justin Gaethje, as he has a chance to take on Khabib, who in my eyes is probably the greatest fighter in the UFC at the moment. I know Fahad might disagree and say Conor, but we all saw what happened last time they went out in the octagon together.